Last night at our JCC in Memphis, a Jewish settler, Rabbi Hanan Schlesinger, and a Palestinian activist, Antoine Saka, sat together and shared their stories in a powerful presentation. There were so many important words shared that it is hard to offer highlights. But here is one vignette. Rabbi Sarit Horowitz of Beth Shalom asked a penetrating question of Rav Schlesinger and Mr. Saka. She asked both of them, how do you grapple spiritually with the reality that your people have inflicted harm on one another without losing faith in who you are? And the answer from both of them was actually the same. It is gut-wrenching, they said. We like to believe in stories where there's a good guy and a bad guy, but it's just not true. My people's triumph, each one said, is his people's tragedy. And coming to terms with the hurt I've inflicted is a painful but important process. There is no shame in owning our flaws, not if we learn from them, not if we act on them. Can you imagine? An Israeli and a Palestinian listening deeply to one another and accepting the other's truth, that they both belong to the land, that they both fear one another, that they both love their children, that they both have betrayed trust, that they both have embraced violence. How many possibilities open up when a person faces his or her worst mistakes, when he prevails in confronting not just the intended or desirable repercussions of his actions, but all of the repercussions, no matter how unsavory they may be. What could be braver or more valiant than this kind of prevailing? Would that some of the powerful men whose gross abuses are being revealed during this moment in our American life find the same valiance and courage as these two souls did in Memphis last night. This week's parashah, Vayishlach, opens with our ancestor Jacob sending messengers to his estranged brother Esau because Jacob is preparing to travel home, again after 20 years of being away. If you recall, Jacob had run away because he had stolen his brother's inheritance through lies and deceit, made terrible, reprehensible decisions from which he benefited greatly and from which Esau was deeply hurt. On the night before Jacob is to confront his brother Esau, he camps alone along the river and is confronted by a mysterious man, an Ish, who wrestles with Jacob all night. As the sun rises, this Ish, this mysterious man, injures Jacob by wrenching his hip out of its socket, and Jacob then demands a blessing. The blessing Jacob receives is his new name, Israel, which we, his descendants, still use today. The explanation given for this name change is that it means one who has struggled with beings, divine and human, and prevailed. Ki sarita im Elohim ve'im anashim v'tuchal. It's interesting that Jacob is described here as having prevailed. He didn't win, did he? He's wounded. He walks with a limp forever. He's at the mercy of this being that he's wrestling with. So what did Jacob prevail against that earned him his new name, Israel? And how can this be a lesson for us, modern-day children of Israel, who still claim this name as our own? Jacob prevails in returning to the scene of his worst crimes, against the urge to deny and justify or just run away. He has decided to face his past, his bad decisions. He has come back to his home, to his roots, to look into the eyes of someone he's hurt, to subject himself to the anger that his brother feels toward him. He comes face to face with his brother, and in doing so, consents to experience the pain that he himself has inflicted. Is there anything more terrifying than facing someone we know that we have hurt? The fear of what that moment will be like, how deeply it will strike at our hearts, that can be an overwhelming fear. And Jacob prevails against it, this fear, and he faces it. When Jacob returns to his homeland, he is wealthy. He has 4 wives and 11 children, flocks and belongings, and the knowledge that he has been blessed by the Father that he and Esau share. And none of this would have been true had he not been deceitful. He subjugated his brother, and through the privileges that he took, he has been able to rise even higher. And he knows that he will have to face that if he tries to return home. But he returns home anyway, bringing all that he owns with him, essentially risking all that he's gained to confront his wrong actions. This kind of honesty is so difficult, isn't it? This person we excluded, maybe, and thereby improved our own social standing, or a test that we successfully cheated on. Just admitting that to ourselves is a struggle so intense that we can often not stand to do it. But by going home and laying bare before his brother all his worldly possessions, Jacob prevails in admitting the unfairness inherent in life, his own privilege, and taking a chance that he may lose some of it. And he prevails against the impulse to hide. Finally, and perhaps most importantly, Jacob prevails in being changed by this confrontation. This midnight struggle by the river is a metaphor, I believe, for Jacob's life. Jacob is wounded by it. His hip is wrenched from its socket. He will walk with a limp. Our worst decisions should change us. Gut-wrenching is the word used last night. The hurt that we cause others should haunt us. That's the only way that we, mere humans, who are so deeply flawed, can bring more light to the world. If our past missteps become our North Stars, whatever our worst mistakes have been, we can, like Jacob, let them change us into better, more broken, and yet somehow more whole people. Are we kinder, perhaps, now for having hurt someone in the past? Are we more honest now for having deceived someone before? Are we upstanders now rather than bystanders for having been complicit in injustice in our past? We can learn from this wrestling match and the confrontation in this week's Torah portion that the earning of a good name does not come from not making mistakes in life. Jacob, Israel, is perhaps the most flawed of all of our ancestors, and it is who we are named for. Rather, a good name is earned by how we wrestle with the worst things that we've ever done, how we face our darkness, and how we let that meeting, that moment of reflection, that confrontation penetrate our souls and change us. By these criteria, it is never too late to become Yisrael, one who struggles with God and human beings. And by these criteria, Yisrael, Israel, is a name not bequeathed at birth, but rather earned through honest and flawed living. What commends us as human beings, our Torah says this week, is not that we never swerve from the path of righteousness, but rather that limping but courageous, we constantly, unfailingly, determinedly fight our way back toward the high road that we know is there. Ken Yehi Ratzon, then, may each of us daily reach it.